You step quietly into the dense heat of the Cambodian morning. It's the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and the faint perfume of frangipani drifting from the scattered temples. Angkor Wat rises before you, its silhouette softened by the gentle haze of dawn. The first rays of sunlight catch on the intricately carved stone, illuminating bas-reliefs that whisper stories centuries old. Here, in the vast expanse of this forgotten city, life once thrived in ways subtle yet complex, hidden within the rhythm of everyday existence that modern visitors rarely glimpse. The city itself was conceived during the reign of Suryavarman II, around the early 12th century. Its architecture reflects not only the grandeur of Khmer kingship, but also the delicate interplay of religion, governance, and the personal lives of those who lived within and around its walls. You imagine the workers carving each sandstone block with painstaking precision, their hands weathered yet skilled, and the priests carefully maintaining rituals that bound the community together in shared devotion. This was a city alive with movement, people crossing causeways, children running along courtyards, merchants arranging their goods for trade. The faint clinking of jewelry, the low murmur of conversation and languages, now faded. Within the shadowed galleries of Angkor Wat, you can almost hear the footsteps of pilgrims, their sandals brushing against worn stone, a subtle reminder of devotion and the human need for connection to the divine. Temples were not merely religious centers. They were communal hubs, places where people exchanged not just goods but ideas, news, and gossip. You see women carrying water jars along narrow stone paths, their conversations filled with plans for the day's market, the birth of a neighbor's child, or the anticipation of royal announcements. Life was cyclical, defined by celestial patterns, agricultural rhythms, and ritual observances that tied every citizen to the grand narrative of the kingdom. The bas-reliefs themselves are an archive of daily life. As you trace your fingers along their cool surfaces, you notice scenes that extend beyond the familiar depictions of battles or divine myths. There are depictions of carpenters at work, fishermen hauling in their morning catch, and dancers performing elaborate routines that celebrate both fertility and the cycles of the seasons. Each figure carries individuality. The expressions are not uniform, yet there is a collective harmony. In these carvings, you can discern subtle social hierarchies, the positioning of a merchant above a laborer, a noble woman seated with elegance, her attendants nearby, indicating status through posture, attire, and proximity. By the river that once nourished Angkor's canals, you imagine families gathering, washing clothes, exchanging news, and teaching their children the arts of daily survival. The water, essential to both ritual and life, also served as a mirror reflecting the complex social structures of the time. Canal workers, often conscripted from villages surrounding the city, labored under the guidance of overseers whose names have been lost but whose authority was unquestioned. They coordinated water levels to irrigate the vast rice paddies, ensuring food for the city and tribute for the king. Such labor was both communal and individual. There was a rhythm, almost meditative, in moving the earth, channeling the water, maintaining the delicate balance between human effort and natural forces. As the sun climbs, the city awakens more fully. Monkeys, undisturbed by human presence, chatter in the trees, while the occasional bird takes flight across the moats. You can hear the subtle thrum of artisans hammering bronze, shaping statues that will adorn shrines or casting tools for daily use. You imagine the clanging echoing across stone corridors, mingling with the distant sound of chants and bells. These were the unnoticed layers of existence, the textures that compose the daily life of Angkor Wat citizens. It is not only the grandiose structures that hold history. In the smaller, now overgrown temple precincts, you can visualize workshops where scribes recorded donations, legal disputes, and religious instructions on palm leaves. Children, perhaps no older than 5 or 6, learn from their elders, tracing the elegant curves of Khmer script, absorbing knowledge not from books in a modern sense, but through observation, repetition, and oral tradition. These moments, seemingly mundane, are threads that maintain the cultural fabric of the city, ensuring continuity and identity across generations. The markets, sprawling in adjacent courtyards, were vibrant centers of exchange. Here, the city's diversity is most palpable. Rice traders converse with weavers, Herbalists offer remedies alongside storytellers recounting the latest news from distant provinces. And the subtle tension of negotiation plays out with ritualized politeness. The smells are intoxicating, incense mingled with fresh herbs, sizzling street food, and the earthy aroma of wet stone. You observe the way social norms dictate behavior, the bow of respect when a noble passes. The careful arrangement of goods to indicate both abundance and humility. The rhythmic patterns of trade, both spontaneous and regulated. The people's attire reflects not just fashion, but climate, status, and occupation. Silk and cotton are worn with grace by those who can afford it, while laborers drape themselves in simple linen or bark cloth. Jewelry and adornments signal marriage, achievement, or religious affiliation. Hairstyles carefully maintained tell silent stories of identity, age, and societal role. Even in repose, these details convey the deep interconnectedness of individual lives with broader social currents. As midday approaches, you can hear the faint murmur of monks and lay devotees alike, moving in unison with rituals that structure time as much as belief. Chanting accompanies offerings of food, flowers, and incense, each gesture a link between the human and the divine. In these moments, the distinction between ordinary life and sacred observance blurs. People do not simply pass through the city, they inhabit it fully. Their every action embedded within layers of meaning, ritual, and communal understanding. You turn your attention to the city's peripheries, where villages are clustered along dirt roads that lead to the surrounding forests. Here, life is quieter, but no less intricate. Farmers tend paddies using techniques perfected over generations. Women gather firewood and herbs. Children play games that mimic the work of adults, embedding practical skills in playful learning. These outskirts feed the urban center, supplying food, labor, and materials, while receiving in return the spiritual, political, and commercial energy that radiates from the temples. Even at leisure, the inhabitants are attentive to the rhythms of their environment. Storytellers, seated under banyan trees, recount the exploits of gods and kings to listeners, both young and old, blending moral instruction with entertainment. Music, simple yet resonant, flows from bamboo flutes and bronze drums, marking celebrations, seasonal shifts, or communal gatherings. Every element of daily life is embedded with meaning, reinforcing a sense of place, purpose, and continuity. By evening, the heat softens, and the city seems to exhale. The sun casts long shadows over the galleries, emphasizing the intricate carvings and highlighting the delicate artistry of each bas-relief. Imagine families preparing evening meals, neighbors exchanging greetings, and the quiet anticipation of rituals that will mark the night. The air is fragrant with cooking fires, incense, and the subtle aroma of wet stone after a brief shower. Animals settle into the nooks of temples, the murmur of humans mingling with the natural sounds of a city that never truly sleeps, only shifts in rhythm. In these quiet hours, you sense the profound intimacy of human life interwoven with monumental architecture. Angkor Wat is not merely stone and sand. It is memory, labor, devotion, and the intangible whispers of lives long past. Each detail, the worn steps, the faint traces of paint, the tiny carvings of animals overlooked by the casual eye speaks to a human presence, both grand and fleeting. And as night falls, the city embraces darkness, not as an end, but as a continuation. Fires burn softly, lamps illuminate niches in the temples, and the hum of conversation fades to a gentle murmur. You are left with a sense of immersion in a world where every action, however small, contributes to a tapestry of life, faith, and society. You're in the quiet grandeur of Angkor Wat. History does not shout, it whispers. And in listening closely, you begin to understand the rhythms, the stories, and the enduring presence of a civilization whose subtleties are often overlooked but never truly lost. As the first stars begin to punctuate the night sky above Angkor Wat, the city's pulse does not quiet entirely. You wander along the stone causeways, your footsteps muted by centuries of accumulated dust, imagining the nocturnal rhythms of those who once inhabited these spaces. Night brought its own patterns of lifeguards walking the perimeters of temple compounds, the families tending to late chores, and the faint rustle of animals that shared the city in a delicate coexistence. In the darkness, the outlines of towers and galleries merge into a dreamlike panorama. and you realize that every shadow here has witnessed countless rituals, disputes, and quiet acts of devotion that rarely reach the chronicles of history. The water in the moats reflects the dim moonlight, revealing ripples made by fish or perhaps by children daring each other to approach too closely. You sense the subtle social choreography that governs even these seemingly private moments. Families in the periphery maintain vigilance while tending small fires, mindful of both wildlife and the responsibilities of daily survival. In some households, elders whisper stories to children, recounting the deeds of kings, gods, and ancestors, blending myth and lived experience seamlessly. These oral traditions are vital threads connecting the city's past to the personal memory of its citizens, a living archive carried not on stone or palm leaf but in human recollection. You notice the intricate relationship between Angkor Wat and its surrounding natural environment. The forests, fields, and rivers that cradled the city were not mere backdrops. They were integral to life, economy, and spirituality. Hunters and gatherers ventured into the dense woods, returning with wild fruits, game, and medicinal plants. Fishermen paddled silently along the canals and rivers, attuned to lunar cycles and the subtle shifts in water currents. Their knowledge, empirical and precise, underpinned the city's sustenance, ensuring that even as political ambitions rose, the everyday needs of the population were met. The social structures of Angkor are equally layered. Nobility and royalty move through the city in ceremonial procession, their presence a constant reminder of centralized authority, yet the interplay between classes was nuanced. Artisans, while technically subservient, enjoyed recognition for their skill. And certain temples fostered communities of specialized workers whose expertise was both respected and crucial for religious and civic life. Women, often overlooked in official records, wielded considerable influence within households and marketplaces, negotiating resources, maintaining family lineage, and participating in ritual life with authority and discretion. As dawn approaches, the first light again filters through the temple towers, casting elongated shadows across the stone. You observe the ritual preparations for daily offerings, incense sticks aligned with meticulous care, a fruit and rice arranged in patterns that honor the divine, and the soft murmurs of prayer blending with the gentle rustle of leaves. Life is a continuous negotiation between human intention and cosmic order. The people of Angkor Wat are keenly aware of their place in both, adjusting behaviors to align with celestial timing, seasonal cycles, and ritual proprieties. Inside the inner galleries, monks and scholars engage in silent study, copying texts and recording observations that may seem mundane but are rich with significance. You can almost hear the scratching of styluses on palm leaves, the whisper of pages turning, and the low hum of chants that accompany these scholarly endeavors. Education is not merely academic. It is a moral and spiritual discipline, interwoven with practical knowledge. Mathematics, astronomy, and medicine are not abstract pursuits, but are applied directly to agriculture, ritual timing, and community health. In the broader city, markets bustle again as day breaks fully. You see vendors displaying woven textiles, metal tools, and ceramic goods. Traders from distant provinces arrive with exotic spices and rare materials, their language is a mixture of Khmer dialects and foreign inflections. Transactions are more than economic. They are social events, opportunities to forge alliances, demonstrate trustworthiness, and assert one's place in the communal hierarchy. The subtleties of body language, the cadence of speech, and the proper acknowledgement of rank govern interactions as much as the tangible exchange of goods. You pause at a small shrine nestled beside a canal, noting the offerings placed carefully in remembrance of ancestors or in hope for personal blessings. People visit these sites frequently, not only to appease spirits, but to reaffirm connections with family and community. Daily life is steeped in layers of unseen obligations and quiet devotion, a rhythm that binds individual choices to the collective continuity of the city. Every action, from tending crops to reciting prayers, is both practical and symbolic. Consider the city's water management system. Its sophistication is remarkable. Canals, reservoirs, and moats are engineered with precision, controlling irrigation across vast expanses of rice paddies. Laborers maintain these structures with care, often guided by local knowledge passed through generations. Mismanagement could result in crop failure or flooding, so the work carries both immediate and long-term consequences. Here, engineering and governance intersect with human experience, shaping social and economic life in subtle yet profound ways. Beyond commerce and sustenance, you witness moments of leisure and personal expression. Dancers practice intricate routines, their movements mirroring mythological tales carved into temple walls. Musicians tune bamboo flutes and drums, their rhythms marking both celebration and contemplation. Children play quietly with handmade toys, their games echoing adult activities, training them in observation, negotiation, and skill. These seemingly minor activities reinforce social cohesion and transmit cultural values in ways as enduring as the stone monuments themselves. The city's spiritual life permeates every layer of existence. Rituals of purification, offerings to deities, and prayers for ancestors create an invisible web linking citizens to each other and to the cosmos. Ceremonies are structured meticulously, yet they allow for personal expression. Monks, priests, and laypeople all participate in ways appropriate to their station, each action imbued with significance. Even those on the margins, the laborers, merchants, or artisans contribute to the sacred rhythm of daily life. Their mundane actions folded into a larger narrative of devotion and continuity. As the afternoon sun warms the courtyards, you sense the overlapping temporalities that define the city, the immediate present, the remembered past, and the anticipated future. People plan for harvests, respond to political directives, and engage in rituals that honor ancestors while preparing for the lives of future generations. This consciousness of time shapes decisions, social norms, and personal behaviors. Embedding foresight into ordinary routines, by evening, the city is again bathed in soft light. You follow the flow of water along canals, noting reflections of temple towers and the subtle interplay of shadow and stone. Families gather for evening meals, often communal, their conversations echoing across courtyards and along narrow paths. You observe the care with which food is prepared, the rituals surrounding consumption, and the ways these actions reaffirm both familial and social bonds. Even in quiet domestic spaces, life is structured, meaningful, and richly textured. As night descends for a second time, Angkor Wat takes on a different character. Fires burn in small shrines, casting flickering shadows on stone carvings. The distant call of animals blends with the low murmur of human activity, a gentle nocturnal symphony. You sense the persistence of continuity, how human life, ritual, and architecture interweave to create a city alive not only in physical presence but in memory, in practice, and in the quiet whisperings of a civilization that still speaks to those who listen closely. As the third day dawns over Angkor Wat, the city appears at once familiar and profoundly elusive. You move along the elevated causeways, tracing the paths worn smooth by countless footsteps over centuries. Every stone beneath your feet seems to carry memory, the weight of decisions, conversations, and quiet contemplations of those long gone. You begin to notice subtler layers of life, the ones often obscured by the grandeur of towers and galleries, yet essential to the lived experience of the city. Beyond the temples and ceremonial courtyards, the residential districts are alive with nuanced activity. Huts built from wood and thatch cluster along narrow paths, smoke curling from small hearths where families prepare meals, dye cloth, or repair everyday items. You observe women kneading rice stew or weaving mats, their hands moving with fluid expertise, a rhythm acquired over generations. Men carve wood, fashion bronze implements, or tend small livestock. Children run barefoot, laughing and learning simultaneously, absorbing the codes of conduct, social hierarchies, and practical skills necessary for survival. Even these ordinary gestures are imbued with meaning. A shared glance, a careful placement of water jars, whispered instruction all speak to the subtle, interconnected social fabric that sustains the city. The intricate social hierarchy of Angkor Wat is evident in both material and spatial terms. Nobility occupies structures closer to central temples, their residences built of stone and more durable materials, whereas commoners live in temporary or semi-permanent dwellings on the periphery. Yet this spatial arrangement is not rigid. Artisans of exceptional skill may reside nearer the sacred precincts, their proximity both a recognition of talent and a functional necessity. You can imagine the negotiation of prestige, authority, and influence taking place silently through placement, behavior, and even appearance. Markets alive with exchange and subtle negotiation offer a window into both economy and culture. You watch merchants displaying finely woven textiles, intricately carved woodwork, bronze ornaments, and herbs for healing. Traders from distant regions arrive with rare commodities, spices, precious stones, and exotic fruits. Market is a hub of both commerce and communication, a place where news, gossip, and practical knowledge are transmitted alongside goods. Every gesture the bow of respect, the careful display of wares. The pacing of conversation follows social norms that ensure order, maintain hierarchy, and facilitate trust. Water remains central to life in Angkor. The network of canals, reservoirs, and moats demonstrates sophisticated engineering, yet it also reflects the social dynamics of labor and obligation. Canal maintenance is often communal, coordinated under overseers, and punctuated by rituals that honor both natural and spiritual forces. The success of crops, the well-being of families, and the prosperity of the city are intimately connected to these hydraulic systems. You can almost hear the measured rhythm of work, digging, reinforcing embankments, adjusting sluices actions carried out in harmony with seasonal cycles, celestial patterns, and social coordination. Education and ritual are inseparable. In private chambers, monks and scholars teach children and novices in both spiritual and practical disciplines. You imagine lessons on Khmer script, basic arithmetic, astronomical observations, and herbal medicine, all woven into moral and spiritual instruction. Education is not a separate domain. It permeates domestic life, market activity, and ritual observance. The city functions as a living classroom where observation, practice, and repetition instill knowledge and values that sustain society across generations. Rituals punctuate daily life with rhythm and continuity. The temple precincts resonate with the sounds of prayer, chant, and musical accompaniment. Offerings of rice, flowers, and incense are arranged with meticulous care, not only to honor deities but to reaffirm social cohesion and individual responsibility. You observe the subtleties, a bow executed with precision, a hand positioned in a particular gesture, a silent glance acknowledging status or kinship. These details, though seemingly minor, are crucial markers of identity and belonging. As midday approaches, you turn your attention to specialized crafts. Artisan stone carvers, bronze casters, textile weavers practice their trades with exacting care. Each action is part of a continuum, linking innovation to tradition. You notice a stone carver working on a bas-relief depicting a scene of everyday life. The figure of a fisherman hauling a net is rendered with such precision that you can imagine the tension in the rope, the wetness of the net, and the anticipation of a successful catch. These artistic expressions are both documentation and celebration, capturing social practices, labor routines, and aesthetic values for posterity. Food preparation reflects both practicality and ritual significance. Kitchens, often modest spaces attached to residential compounds, are sites of careful attention. Rice, fish, vegetables, and herbs are combined according to culinary knowledge passed down orally. Meals are shared communally, sometimes with ritual gestures acknowledging ancestors, the spirits, or deities. Eating itself is a structured act, portions divided according to status, respect shown to elders, and gratitude expressed for sustenance. Even this daily necessity becomes an enactment of cultural continuity. Children and youth are engaged constantly in learning through play and observation. Games mimic adult activities, teaching negotiation, coordination, and social awareness. Apprenticeship is central to skill transmission. A young weaver or bronze worker observes the master's hands, internalizing subtle techniques that cannot be captured in text. In this way, expertise flows naturally from one generation to the next, embedding cultural memory into embodied practice. The city's spiritual landscape is mirrored in its architecture. Temples, shrines, and altars are carefully positioned in relation to celestial alignments, cardinal directions, and symbolic geographies. This deliberate arrangement reinforces both cosmological understanding and social order. You notice the subtle use of light and shadow throughout the day, enhancing the sacred atmosphere and guiding ritual movement. Even the placement of offerings and devotional objects within these spaces reflects a profound comprehension of harmony between the physical, spiritual, and social realms. Political life, though less visible than rituals or markets, permeates everyday existence. Royal decrees, tax obligations, and labor duties are communicated through intermediaries who ensure compliance without constant oversight. Authority is maintained not only through force, but through ritualized acknowledgement, social conventions, and an implicit understanding of the king's role in cosmic and human order. You imagine citizens navigating these expectations daily, balancing personal needs with communal responsibilities, and adapting practices to align with shifting political directives. As afternoon light softens, the interplay of work, worship, and leisure becomes apparent. You observe musicians practicing in courtyards, children gathering water from wells, and women exchanging herbal remedies. Each action, though small, contributes to the rhythm of city life, maintaining continuity while offering moments of individuality. The city is a mosaic of human experience, where labor, artistry, devotion, and play coexist in interdependent harmony. Evening brings subtle shifts. Fires are lit in residential compounds, casting flickering shadows on walls. You hear the soft murmur of conversation, the clinking of cooking implements, and the occasional distant call of a guard. Rituals of evening devotion are observed in homes and temples alike, blending gratitude, remembrance, and reflection. The city, while quieter than at midday, retains a steady heartbeat, its energy diffused across countless minor actions that collectively sustain society. Night envelops Angkor Wat again, offering a contemplative space. Under the gentle light of lamps and stars, you perceive the continuity of human presence, the layering of memory, and the persistence of cultural rhythms. Architecture, ritual, and daily life converge, creating a living tapestry that cannot be reduced to stone or text alone. Here in these shadowed corridors, you sense the whispers of lives intimately connected to each other and to a vast cosmological order. As morning light spreads over Angkor Wat for the fourth day, you begin to perceive the subtler currents of political life that pulse beneath the city's seemingly serene surface. The grandeur of temple towers and the rhythmic flow of daily chores conceal a complex interplay of power, duty, and negotiation. The king, though distant, is a constant presence in everyday life, authority both visible in monumental architecture and intangible in the laws, rituals, and social norms that structure the city. You imagine royal envoys moving silently through causeways, carrying decrees or supervising labor, their movements measured, their expressions carefully neutral, conveying authority without unnecessary spectacle. Within this vast political landscape, local officials and administrators hold substantial influence. They mediate between the distant monarchy and the ordinary citizen, ensuring that taxes are collected, labor obligations fulfilled, and ritual proprieties observed. These intermediaries maintain a delicate balance. Too strict, and unrest might brew. Too lenient, and royal expectations risk being unmet. You visualize a district overseer moving among canal workers, adjusting schedules, inspecting repairs, and occasionally offering counsel or mild admonition. Each action is a negotiation of authority, respect, and efficiency, carried out in subtle gestures that have been refined over generations. The intricate bureaucracy is mirrored in record-keeping practices. Scribes work in chambers carved into temple walls, carefully inscribing donations, labor assignments, and legal judgments on palm leaves. Their hands move with practiced precision, their eyes tracing faint guidelines drawn by earlier generations. Yet, these records, though technical, are deeply human. Disputes over land, petitions for mercy, and requests for ritual intercession are all recorded alongside inventories of goods and lists of workers. You imagine the faint rustle of palm leaves and the low murmur of conversation, a quiet testament to the administrative machinery that underpins daily life. Political life intertwines seamlessly with ritual. Festivals and ceremonies often serve dual purposes: religious devotion and the reaffirmation of social hierarchy. During such events, nobles and officials are prominently displayed, their status reinforced by positioning attire and the attentions they receive. Ordinary citizens participate actively, performing tasks ranging from preparing offerings to maintaining processional routes. The act of participation itself becomes an assertion of loyalty, a subtle yet powerful mechanism by which authority is recognized and sustained.
Ow.
The residential quarters reveal further nuances of hierarchy and social negotiation. Houses of varying materials and sizes mark differences in wealth and status, but social mobility is possible through skill, service, or religious merit. You picture a talented artisan invited closer to the central precincts, receiving patronage for exceptional craftsmanship. Similarly, a monk of recognized wisdom may gain influence disproportionate to material wealth, shaping both spiritual practice and communal decision-making. These dynamics demonstrate that authority in Angkor Wat was multifaceted, balancing material power, expertise, and ritual significance. Within households, gender roles are defined but not rigidly constrained. Women oversee domestic management, influence trade, and maintain ritual knowledge. They instruct children in proper behavior, mediate disputes, and ensure that obligations to both ancestors and the monarchy are observed. Men, while often engaged in physical labor or military duty, also participate in spiritual practices and domestic responsibilities, albeit in ways structured by social expectation. You sense the constant negotiation within family units, balancing authority, affection, and practical necessity. Markets continue to be centers of both economy and socialization. Traders from distant provinces converge, introducing goods, ideas, and news from across the kingdom. Price negotiation is nuanced, incorporating not only material value, but also reputation, relationship, and the subtle signaling of status. You notice a merchant subtly acknowledging a noble buyer, adjusting presentation and speech to convey respect without diminishing perceived independence. Even in commerce, social hierarchies are enacted, observed, and reinforced with elegant subtlety. The city's water system remains a tangible symbol of both engineering and social coordination. Canals, reservoirs, and moats are not merely functional. They are statements of control, organization, and civic responsibility. Laborers engage in maintenance as both duty and ritual, aware that their actions sustain food supply, trade, and community cohesion. Supervisors monitor carefully, ensuring not only efficiency, but also alignment with symbolic meanings: water as purification, life, and cosmic order. You sense that the rhythm of work, though pragmatic, is deeply entwined with cultural and spiritual understanding. Artistic life flourishes alongside labor and governance. Stone carvers, bronze casters, and textile weavers contribute not only practical items, but also objects of aesthetic and spiritual significance. Each bas-relief, statue, or patterned cloth carries encoded information about social roles, religious beliefs, and historical memory. You imagine artisans pausing to observe natural phenomena, human gestures, or ritual performance, translating these observations into enduring forms that communicate across generations. The act of creation itself becomes both profession and devotion, labor and worship intertwined seamlessly. Spiritual practices permeate every layer of life. Daily rituals include offerings at small household shrines, prayers at community temples, and participation in large-scale festivals. The placement of incense, flowers, and food is deliberate, following prescriptions that harmonize domestic space with cosmic order. Monks, priests, and laypeople engage in overlapping practices, creating a continuous flow of devotion that bridges individual experience with communal rhythm. Even mundane activities, preparing food, tending animals, or repairing tools are often imbued with ritual significance, reflecting a worldview in which human, spiritual, and natural realms are inseparable. Education is intimately tied to social and spiritual life. Children learn from elders, observing both practical skills and moral instruction. Apprenticeship ensures skill transmission, while household and temple instruction convey cultural values, ethical norms, and ritual knowledge. You see a young student tracing the elegant curves of Khmer script, guided by the patient hand of a mentor, while listening to stories of gods, kings, ancestors that encode ethical lessons and historical memory. Knowledge is embodied, relational, and deeply integrated into daily life. Leisure and play coexist with labor and ritual, maintaining social cohesion. Musicians practice under trees or in courtyards. Dancers rehearse intricate movements, and children engage in games that mimic adult roles. Even these activities serve practical functions, training attention, coordination, and social negotiation, while reinforcing communal identity. You sense that pleasure, artistry, and social learning are inseparable in Angkor Wat's daily rhythm. As dusk settles, shadows stretch across courtyards and galleries. Families light fires, prepare evening meals, and perform devotions that conclude the day. Guards patrol quiet corridors, while nocturnal animals stir in hidden corners. The city's pulse remains steady, subtle, and multi-layered, governed by politics, ritual, labor, artistry, and social negotiation. In the interplay of these forces, life is simultaneously ordered and dynamic, intimate and monumental, ephemeral and enduring. And as night deepens, Angkor Wat whispers again, revealing the complex, interconnected world that underlies every stone, every carved figure, and every faint trace of human presence. Here, the city's forgotten lives, its artisans, farmers, traders, priests, and children persist in memory, waiting to be understood in the quiet attention of those who listen closely. With the arrival of the fifth day, Angkor Wat's position as a hub of regional interaction becomes unmistakable. The city is not isolated. It exists within a network of rivers, roads, and trade routes that link distant provinces, neighboring kingdoms, and even far-off maritime centers. You sense the flow of people and goods, each movement carrying subtle imprints of social, political, and cultural exchange. Merchants from Champa, traders from Srivijaya, and travelers from distant villages converge within the city, bringing with them not only material goods but ideas, practices, and influences that ripple through daily life. The marketplace is a microcosm of this exchange. Stalls are adorned with silk from faraway looms, ceramics shaped in distant kilns, spices whose scents evoke tropical forests hundreds of miles away. Local merchants display rice, fish, herbs, and carved wood, their products reflecting the city's agricultural and artisanal richness. Transactions are nuanced, a blend of negotiation, trust, and subtle signaling of social rank. You watch as a noble buyer approaches a stall, and the merchant adjusts both posture and speech, acknowledging hierarchy while ensuring fairness in trade. Conversation often moves fluidly between commerce, gossip, and diplomatic intelligence, illustrating how even ordinary exchanges carry layers of meaning. The arrival of foreign travelers introduces new cultural elements into the city's rhythm. They bring unfamiliar clothing styles, languages, and ritual practices, creating both curiosity and adaptation among locals. Artisans observe and occasionally incorporate foreign motifs into their carvings and textiles, producing subtle syncretism that blends traditional Khmer aesthetics with novel forms. Culinary practices, too, are influenced. Spices, cooking methods, and ingredients travel along with merchants, altering the familiar aromas of kitchens and markets. These exchanges, while often invisible in official records, shape the city's evolving identity in profound and lasting ways. Transport and logistics are critical to sustaining this level of connectivity. Boats navigate the Tonle Sap and nearby rivers, carrying rice, timber, stone, and luxury goods, while porters and draft animals transport heavier cargo over land. You imagine the coordinated effort required, scheduling, loading, guarding, and distributing goods across the city. Canal systems are carefully managed to facilitate movement, balancing irrigation needs with navigation, reflecting an intricate understanding of water management and labor organization. The city's prosperity is inseparable from these networks, and each worker, from laborer to boatman, plays a vital role in maintaining flow and order. Social interaction is also shaped by these transregional exchanges. Merchants and travelers often serve as conduits of information, bringing news of political developments, agricultural yields, and distant conflicts. Their presence affects negotiation strategies, market prices, and even ritual practices, as communities adjust to perceived external threats or opportunities. Ordinary citizens are attuned to these dynamics. They interpret and react subtly, ensuring that both local interests and broader political realities are navigated effectively. Temples and shrines serve as points of both religious devotion and social convergence. Pilgrims from distant regions arrive, offering donations, seeking blessings, or performing rituals that reinforce ties to the kingdom. You observe processions of devotees, some carrying small offerings, others performing elaborate dances or chants. The presence of these outsiders introduces new devotional expressions, expanding the spiritual repertoire of the city. Monks and priests guide these visitors, simultaneously upholding tradition and accommodating diversity, maintaining the delicate balance between inclusion and hierarchy. Within households, cultural exchange manifests in quieter ways. Recipes evolve as new spices are introduced, music incorporates instruments or scales from distant regions, clothing reflects styles observed in travelers or imported textiles. Children, keen observers, absorb these nuances, integrating them into their understanding of identity and practice. You can almost hear the quiet conversations in kitchens or courtyards, questions about origin, curiosity about distant lands, and stories relayed from visitors' experiences. This continuous flow of influence shapes both mundane routines and the city's long-term cultural evolution. Labor dynamics are similarly impacted. Skilled artisans may adopt foreign techniques or materials introduced by traveling traders. Stone carvers might experiment with motifs observed in distant temples, while metalworkers adjust alloys based on imported knowledge. This integration of new methods is subtle, often unnoticed by casual observers, yet it ensures that the city's material culture remains dynamic, adaptive, and highly sophisticated. Even ordinary tasks, such as weaving or cooking, are enhanced incrementally by exposure to external ideas, reflecting a pervasive and ongoing process of cultural synthesis. The city's administration carefully mediates these interactions. Foreign traders must pay dues, adhere to local norms, and sometimes act as informants, providing intelligence about conditions in distant lands. Officials enforce regulations while facilitating the flow of commerce, balancing economic gain with social order. You imagine the quiet calculations behind each decree, the subtle oversight of labor and market activity, and the ongoing adjustments that ensure the city functions as a cohesive yet open system. Education and mentorship are influenced by these trans-regional contacts as well. Monks may incorporate knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, or medicine obtained from travelers into their teachings, while apprentices observe new techniques in craft or construction. Children are exposed to stories of distant lands, expanding their understanding of geography, politics, and human diversity. In this way, even the youngest members of society participate in a form of cross-cultural learning that shapes their worldview, social awareness, and practical skills. Daily rituals absorb and reflect this diversity. Temple offerings may include materials from afar, dances may incorporate novel movements, and chants sometimes feature foreign linguistic elements. While maintaining the core Khmer cosmology, these subtle integrations demonstrate the city's capacity for adaptation, blending fidelity to tradition with openness to new influences. You notice the fluidity of these practices, the balance between innovation and preservation, and the constant negotiation that sustains cultural coherence amidst diversity. Even leisure and play are subtly shaped by external influences. Games introduced by travelers are adopted and modified by children. Musicians experiment with new rhythms and scales. Storytellers recount tales of distant lands that captivate audiences and expand imagination. These activities, while seemingly peripheral, are vital threads in the city's social fabric, teaching adaptability, creativity, and intercultural understanding from an early age. As the sun sets over the canals, the city's lights and shadows interplay with the flowing water. Evening rituals resume. Incense and lamps illuminate courtyards and galleries, highlighting bas-reliefs that tell stories of both local and faraway lands. Merchants pack up stalls, travelers find lodging, and families gather for communal meals, often discussing the news and impressions brought by outsiders. In these moments, Angkor Wat reveals its dual identity, a center of tradition and a hub of dynamic exchange. Constantly negotiating the familiar and the novel, night envelops the city once more. Fires burn softly in homes, lamps glow in shrines, and the quiet murmur of conversation mingles with the nocturnal chorus of birds, insects, and animals. In these intertwined layers of commerce, ritual, education, and social life, you sense the remarkable resilience and adaptability of the city's inhabitants. Each individual, whether a local artisan, a traveling merchant, or a novice monk, contributes to an ongoing narrative of connection, continuity, and transformation. And as the darkness deepens, Angkor Wat whispers its story once again, one of vibrant exchange, subtle negotiation, and the enduring interplay between human ambition, cultural continuity, and the ever-shifting currents of a city that reaches beyond its own walls. As the sixth day unfolds over Angkor Wat, your attention turns to the lifeblood of the city. It's agriculture. The vast rice paddies surrounding the temple complex are not mere background scenery. They are the foundation upon which every social, economic, and ritual activity depends. Water courses through meticulously constructed canals, sluices, and reservoirs, ensuring that fields are neither parched nor flooded. Laborers move rhythmically through muddy fields, planting and harvesting rice with an expertise honed over generations. Each motion, though repetitive, is imbued with an awareness of celestial patterns, seasonal timing, and communal necessity. The daily routines of farmers are punctuated by small rituals. Offerings of flowers, incense, or food are made to local spirits or deities believed to inhabit rivers, trees, or fields. These acts of devotion are not merely symbolic. They reinforce social cohesion, create shared moral frameworks, provide psychological reassurance amidst the uncertainties of weather, disease, or labor. You can imagine a farmer pausing, mid-planting, to perform a silent gesture, aligning hand and heart with cosmic order, before resuming work with renewed focus. The labor hierarchy in agricultural zones is complex. Village heads or overseers coordinate planting schedules, irrigation tasks, and harvest rotations, ensuring that the collective effort maximizes yield and minimizes risk. Families contribute according to ability and social status, with adults taking primary roles and children assisting through observation and light tasks. The work is physically demanding, yet there is a rhythm and subtle poetry to coordinated movement, water manipulation, and the careful handling of young plants. Food production is deeply intertwined with social structures. Surplus rice is stored in granaries, distributed to temples, or used to meet tax obligations to the monarchy. The act of contributing to collective reserves reinforces social responsibility and interdependence. Traders then distribute excess to distant parts of the city, providing sustenance for artisans, officials, and religious communities. You sense the intricate choreography, the farmer's labor feeding the urban population. It's the market facilitating exchange, and the temple rituals ensuring spiritual legitimacy for the process. Alongside rice cultivation, secondary crops, livestock, and foraging supplement sustenance. Fruit trees, vegetables, and herbs are tended carefully, often near homes or within temple precincts. Livestock, pigs, chickens, water buffalo, protein, labor, and fertilizer, forming an essential component of the ecological and economic system. Gathering and tending these resources requires vigilance, skill, and cooperation, reinforcing bonds between families, neighbors, and the broader community. Daily life in the agricultural periphery mirrors the city's rhythm while maintaining its own temporal logic. Morning begins early, with the light and temperature dictating activity. Labor continues until midday, when breaks are taken, meals shared, and minor rituals observed. Afternoon work proceeds as the sun shifts and the day concludes with communal reflection, storytelling, and preparation for the next cycle. These temporal structures are learned intuitively and passed from one generation to the next, ensuring continuity in labor, culture, and spiritual observance. The management of water in agricultural zones is a masterclass in organization. Canals are cleaned, embankments reinforced, and sluices adjusted to match rainfall, tidal variations, and seasonal needs. Laborers act both individually and collectively, guided by overseers whose knowledge combines technical skill with experiential wisdom. Mismanagement could result in crop failure, social unrest, or ritual disfavor, highlighting the stakes embedded in seemingly mundane actions. Children participate in these systems through observation and small tasks. They assist with feeding livestock, tending young plants, or transporting water. Play often mimics adult labor, teaching coordination, problem-solving, and social negotiation. Apprenticeship extends to every skill necessary for survival: carpentry, fishing, weaving, and ritual observance. By engaging actively, the young internalize the rhythms, responsibilities, and ethics that sustain both household and community life. Women's labor is multifaceted and central. In fields, they assist with planting and harvesting. At home, they manage storage, food preparation, and ritual observance. Their role in preserving and transmitting knowledge from agricultural techniques to social etiquette is vital. You can imagine a mother instructing her children in irrigation techniques while simultaneously offering prayers to local deities, merging practical knowledge with spiritual practice seamlessly. Food preparation is a cultural and social process as much as a survival necessity. Rice is washed, steamed, and served alongside vegetables, fish, and occasionally meat. Herbs, spices, and sauces enhance flavor and confer medicinal or symbolic properties. Meals are communal, reflecting hierarchy, respect, and familial bonds. Each act, from cooking to serving, carries meaning, a demonstration of skill, care, and participation in the broader social and spiritual order. Labor extends beyond the fields. Artisans require raw materials, markets need supplies, and temples depend on offerings to function effectively. You sense a vast, interconnected system in which agricultural productivity underpins urban life, ritual practices, and social stability. Every individual's work is a link in a chain that sustains the entire civilization. Evening brings the day's labor to a close. Farmers gather by fires, sharing meals, stories, and counsel. Songs may accompany tasks such as winnowing rice or tending fires, creating a rhythm that eases physical strain and reinforces communal identity. Elders recount experiences, offering guidance and cautionary tales. Children absorb these narratives, learning both practical knowledge and the moral codes that underpin social cohesion. Nightfall in the agricultural periphery mirrors the city, a blend of quiet reflection, ritual observance, and preparation for tomorrow. Water buffalo rest, fires burn softly, and insects chorus alongside the occasional call of nocturnal birds. You feel the persistence of continuity, the way labor, ritual, family, and education interweave to maintain both survival and cultural memory. The city's pulse extends into these fields, a rhythm sustained by countless hands, minds, and hearts working in harmony. Angkor Wat's agricultural system, you realize, is both practical and symbolic. Fields are arenas of labor, sites of social interaction, and spaces for ritual observance. The water coursing through canals mirrors the flow of social, economic, and spiritual life, connecting temples to homes, markets to granaries, and ancestors to the living. Life in these fields is a constant negotiation between nature, human effort, and divine favor. A dance that sustains the city's pulse and ensures its continuity across generations. And as darkness settles over the paddies, the city whispers again, not just from stone towers or temple galleries, but from the water, soil, and labor that sustain it, revealing the depth and subtlety of lives that continue largely unseen, yet fundamentally essential to the story of Angkor Wat. As the seventh day dawns over Angkor Wat, your gaze shifts inward, from the canals and fields to the intimate spaces of family and community. Houses, modest in structure yet rich with daily activity, form the core of social life. You observe the subtle interplay of roles, obligations, and relationships that sustain households, shaping identity, continuity, and emotional bonds. Within these walls, life is orchestrated with careful attention, balancing labor, ritual, education, and interpersonal connection. The structure of families is both hierarchical and collaborative. Elders command respect and guidance, serving as custodians of memory, ritual knowledge, and moral authority. You imagine a grandmother instructing children in the preparation of offerings for ancestors, her hands steady as she demonstrates the proper arrangement of rice, flowers, and incense. At the same time, her storytelling conveys historical knowledge, moral lessons, and a sense of belonging that transcends mere instruction. Fathers contribute through labor, resource management, and protection, while mothers orchestrate the household's internal economy, supervising food preparation, childcare, and domestic crafts. Children, eager and attentive, absorb not only practical skills, but also the values, ethics, and emotional intelligence necessary to navigate both family and community life. Rituals within the home mirror those of the city at large, scaled to personal and familial contexts. Daily prayers, offerings to ancestors, and observances aligned with celestial patterns ensure that the household functions harmoniously with cosmic and social order. You see parents and children kneeling together, the rhythm of their chants echoing in small spaces, embedding continuity between generations. Even mundane tasks, sweeping, cooking, weaving, are imbued with subtle spiritual significance, reflecting a worldview in which every action participates in a larger, meaningful pattern. Marriage and courtship, central to familial continuity, are marked by both social expectation and personal negotiation. Betrothal often considers social status, family alliances, and economic stability. Yet affection and compatibility are not entirely absent. You imagine a young couple exchanging gifts or participating in communal festivals, navigating societal norms while developing private bonds. Weddings and related ceremonies are elaborate, blending ritual, celebration, and social signaling. Every gesture, from the choice of attire to the positioning of participants, communicates respect, hierarchy, and commitment, weaving individual relationships into the broader social tapestry. Children's lives are structured around a blend of play, learning, and labor. Play is seldom frivolous. Games mimic adult responsibilities, training coordination, negotiation, and problem-solving skills. Apprenticeships extend into households and workshops. Children learning weaving, carpentry, metalworking, or agricultural management by observing and assisting adults. Education is relational and immersive, embedding knowledge within the context of daily life and social interaction. Through these practices, cultural memory, ethical frameworks, and practical expertise are transmitted seamlessly across generations. Community festivals punctuate the rhythm of domestic life, reinforcing social cohesion and shared identity. You can imagine families preparing offerings, decorating homes and streets, and participating in processions, music, and dance. These events integrate multiple layers of meaning: religious devotion, social hierarchy, communal negotiation, and the celebration of seasonal cycles. Children observe and participate, internalizing both ritual protocols and social norms, ensuring that cultural knowledge persists while providing moments of joy, creativity, and collective expression. Trade and craft production intersect with household life. Artisans may work from home, producing textiles, carvings, or metal goods that supply markets, temples, and ceremonial needs. The spatial overlap of domestic and economic activity underscores the inseparability of private and public life, as well as the fluidity of labor roles. Women, in particular, contribute to production, combining household management with weaving, pottery, or herbal medicine preparation, demonstrating adaptability, skill, and social agency. Communication within and between households relies on subtle conventions. Respectful gestures, attentive listening, and timely assistance reinforce hierarchy and cohesion. Conflict, when it arises, is managed through mediation, ritualized apology, or social negotiation, minimizing disruption while maintaining moral and social order. You can envision neighbors exchanging resources, information, and labor in ways that strengthen both practical survival and social bonds, embedding reciprocity into daily life. Food remains central to domestic and communal cohesion. Meals are prepared with attention to nutrition, ritual propriety, and social signaling. The division of labor in kitchens is coordinated and adaptive, reflecting knowledge of seasonality, ingredient availability, and ceremonial requirements. Sharing a meal reinforces hierarchy, kinship, and communal identity, while also embedding lessons of generosity, respect, and attentiveness. The preparation and consumption of food thus becomes an ongoing exercise in cultural continuity. Spiritual practices extend beyond ritual observance to inform social and emotional life. Parents guide children in ethical reasoning, storytelling conveys moral frameworks, and communal observances foster empathy and cooperation. You imagine an elder recounting the deeds of gods and ancestors at the hearth, embedding history, ethics, and spiritual understanding into moments of intimacy. This blend of narrative, ritual, education ensures that the household serves as both sanctuary and classroom, sustaining identity, knowledge, and moral order. Even in leisure, subtle social structures persist. Music, dance, and storytelling provide pleasure, cultural reinforcement, and training in social norms. Children practice rhythms, gestures, or verbal skills, while adults engage in communal recitation, performance, or quiet reflection. These activities reinforce cohesion, transmit expertise, and balance labor with relaxation, maintaining both physical and social health. As dusk approaches, households participate in evening rituals that harmonize domestic life with citywide patterns. Lamps illuminate shrines and courtyards, incense and prayers punctuate quiet activity, and the rhythm of daily labor slows into reflective moments. You notice the interplay of light, shadow, and human presence. Each household a microcosm of the city's broader temporal, social, and spiritual rhythms. Nightfall brings introspection and repose. Families gather for meals, storytelling, or quiet prayer. Children drift into sleep under watchful eyes, absorbing not only comfort but also lessons that will shape their understanding of social norms, spiritual practice, and communal responsibility. The continuity of family life, intimately observed and carefully nurtured, sustains both daily order and the larger cultural narrative. And as darkness deepens across Angkor Wat, you realize that these households, modest, bustling, interwoven with ritual and social obligation, are the hidden heartbeat of the city. Their activities, choices, and relationships are subtle yet profound forces, maintaining continuity, shaping identity, and ensuring that life, memory, and culture persist within the grand stone monuments that tower silently above them. As the eighth day dawns over Angkor Wat, your attention shifts to the city's vibrant artistic and cultural life, a dimension as integral to its identity as its architecture, agriculture, and ritual. Creativity permeates both public and private spaces, from grand temple bas-reliefs to modest domestic crafts, reflecting aesthetic sensibility, spiritual devotion, and social expression. Art in Angkor is not a separate sphere. It intertwines seamlessly with ritual, labor, and community, shaping experience, memory, and identity. Stone carvers are among the city's most visible artisans. You observe them working on temple galleries, their chisels producing intricate bas-reliefs that depict scenes of mythology, daily life, and cosmic order. Every curve, line, and figure is deliberate, reflecting both artistic mastery and symbolic meaning. A carving of a fisherman hauling his net may capture not just the physical tension, but also social cues. The fisherman's posture, clothing, interaction with nearby figures encode information about labor, hierarchy, gender roles, and communal interdependence. These artworks are simultaneously records of lived experience, vehicles for religious devotion, and instruments of social instruction. Bronze workers create ritual vessels, statues, and tools that sustain both religious and civic life. The casting process requires careful preparation, precise timing, and deep knowledge of materials and techniques. You imagine the rhythmic clanging of hammers, the hiss of molten metal, and the concentrated focus of artisans whose expertise is passed down through apprenticeships. Each object produced carries both functional and symbolic significance, whether used in temple ceremonies, household rituals, or public display, embodying skill, devotion, and communal values. Textile production, often centered in domestic spaces, is a key medium of aesthetic expression. Women weave cloth imbued with intricate patterns, using color and design to convey social identity, religious affiliation, and personal artistry. Young apprentices observe and assist, learning the subtleties of tension, pattern alignment, and dye preparation. The finished textiles are not merely functional. They serve as markers of status, ceremonial offerings, and repositories of cultural memory. Each warp and weft is a tangible record of accumulated knowledge and creativity, linking generations through craft. Music is both communal and personal. Musicians tune bamboo flutes, drums, and stringed instruments, practicing scales that accompany dance, chant, and ritual observance. In courtyards, small ensembles rehearse compositions passed down orally, refining timing, rhythm, and harmony. Music serves multiple functions. It accompanies ritual, regulates work pace, fosters social cohesion, and offers aesthetic pleasure. Even in solitary practice, musicians internalize both technical skill and spiritual resonance, contributing to a citywide sonic landscape that is at once structured and fluid. Dance embodies storytelling, ritual precision, and social hierarchy. Dancers, often trained from a young age, perform movements codified over centuries, their gestures and postures conveying narrative, ethical lessons, and cosmic symbolism. You can envision a young performer imitating the divine or heroic figures depicted on temple walls, internalizing both mythic knowledge and disciplined physical control. Dance instruction is rigorous, requiring observation, repetition, and subtle guidance from mentors. Yet it also fosters creativity, interpretive skill, and personal expression within the bounds of tradition. Storytelling, both oral and performed, is central to cultural transmission. Elders recount legends of gods, kings, and heroes to children, embedding historical memory, ethical guidance, and cosmological understanding in narrative form. Festivals and communal gatherings amplify these stories, integrating music, dance, and dramatic gesture. But you sense how narrative functions as a bridge, linking past and present, teaching social norms, and cultivating imagination and moral reasoning. Yet even minor tales whispered at household fires contribute to the continuous weaving of memory and identity. Domestic crafts complement monumental artistry. Pottery, basketry, and woodworking combine utility, aesthetic care, and symbolic meaning. You imagine a potter shaping clay on a simple wheel, attentive to both form and function, while subtly embedding decorative motifs that convey social, spiritual, or familial identity. Each object produced is a microcosm of knowledge, skill, and cultural encoding, functioning simultaneously in practical, ceremonial, and expressive domains. Education and artistic practice is embedded in daily observation, mentorship, and apprenticeship. Children and adolescents learn through hands-on participation, watching experts, and receiving incremental instruction. This approach ensures continuity of technique, aesthetic sensibility, and cultural knowledge, while also encouraging personal adaptation and subtle innovation. Artistic expertise is thus both inherited and responsive, dynamic yet anchored in tradition. Social gatherings amplify the interplay of artistry, ritual, and personal expression. Courtyards and public squares host performances that merge music, dance, storytelling, and ceremonial observance. Participation is structured according to status, age, and role, yet all contribute to collective identity. You can almost hear the layering of sound, rhythmic drumming marking processions, melodic chants resonating in temple corridors, and playful improvisation echoing in domestic spaces. These interwoven auditory textures reinforce social cohesion, spiritual observance, and cultural continuity. Artistic production also reflects and mediates social hierarchy. Elaborate carvings, textiles, and ritual objects denote status, skill, and devotion. Patronage by nobles, officials, and temple authorities enables ambitious projects, while artisans and performers negotiate recognition, compensation, and opportunity. Even subtle gestures, attention to detail, adherence to stylistic conventions, or innovative adaptations serve as markers of prestige, mastery, and social acumen. The interplay of patron, creator, and audience shapes both material culture and social order. The integration of creativity with labor and ritual demonstrates a holistic worldview. Craft, music, and dance are not isolated activities. They inform agricultural rhythm, market interaction, domestic routine, and spiritual observance. You sense that every artistic act reinforces, reflects, and extends the broader social and cosmic order, embedding meaning in both mundane and monumental domains. Even private practice, solitary contemplation, casual improvisation contributes to the city's living culture, connecting individual experience with communal continuity. As evening approaches, courtyards glow with lamplight, illuminating dancers rehearsing movements, musicians refining compositions, and artisans completing work for market or ritual use. You perceive a city alive with quiet energy, a continuous interplay of sound, motion, and creation. Even as night falls, these practices persist in homes, temples, and public spaces, forming an enduring network of cultural activity that defines Angkor Wat's character beyond its stone architecture. Night deepens, but the pulse of artistic life continues subtly. Music drifts from open windows, dancers practice in courtyards lit by lanterns, and storytellers whisper tales to attentive children. Art, craft, and performance sustain the memory, identity, and rhythm of the city, interweaving human experience, spiritual devotion, and social order. Angkor Wat's grandeur is thus not only monumental, it is lived, felt, and continually created through countless acts of skill, observation, and imagination. And as darkness envelops the city, you understand that creativity is the invisible architecture of life-shaping perception, reinforcing social bonds, and ensuring that cultural continuity persists, even in spaces where stone alone cannot speak. As the ninth day unfolds over Angkor Wat, your attention turns to the delicate interplay of health, medicine, the challenges of daily life, a dimension often overlooked but crucial to understanding the city's rhythm and resilience. Life here, while meticulously organized and culturally rich, is also vulnerable to disease, injury, and environmental pressures. Illness is not merely a biological event. It is woven into social, spiritual, and practical frameworks, shaping behavior, labor, and ritual observance. You observe households attending to minor ailments with care and precision. Herbal remedies, drawn from locally grown or foraged plants, are prepared according to inherited knowledge. Leaves are crushed, roots boiled, and powders mixed. Each procedure reflecting accumulated experience, empirical observation, and symbolic reasoning. Mothers and elders administer these treatments, carefully explaining preparation and dosage to the young, ensuring continuity of knowledge. Even the act of healing reinforces social bonds, demonstrating care, competence, and responsibility. Beyond the household, specialized practitioners provide medical guidance. These healers, sometimes monks or trained midwives, are repositories of both spiritual and practical knowledge. They perform rituals to appease local spirits, recite incantations, and apply poultices, or techniques informed by observation and tradition. Patients, in turn, approach treatment with a combination of respect, hope, and pragmatic understanding, recognizing that healing is as much a social and spiritual practice as a physical one. You can imagine the quiet intensity in treatment spaces, the measured tone of advice, the precise application of remedies, the subtle gestures of reassurance that accompany care. Childbirth, a central aspect of family continuity, is approached with ritual, skill, and careful preparation. Midwives guide expectant mothers through the process, offering both practical support and spiritual safeguards. Herbs, prayers, and protective charms are employed alongside hands-on techniques, creating a multifaceted approach to one of life's most critical events. Families gather to provide support, ensuring that both mother and infant are surrounded by attention, skill, and communal care. You can almost hear the rhythmic breathing, whispered prayers, soft encouragement that accompany the arrival of new life. Disease and injury are constant considerations, particularly in labor-intensive contexts like agriculture, construction, and craft production. Workers manage cuts, bruises, sprains, and fatigue with home remedies or by seeking guidance from local practitioners. Public health is indirectly supported by collective behavior, cleanliness of water sources, maintenance of canals, and coordinated labor to reduce environmental hazards. The city's survival depends on the vigilance, knowledge, and cooperation of its residents, each action contributing to a network of prevention and response. Food and nutrition play a subtle but critical role in health. Daily meals, crafted from rice, vegetables, fish, and herbs, are carefully balanced to sustain energy, promote vitality, and prevent illness. Families adjust diets according to season, availability, and observed effects on health. You notice how culinary practices reflect both empirical observation and spiritual logic. Certain herbs are believed to prevent fever, specific preparations are aligned with ritual propriety, and communal meals reinforce both physical sustenance and social cohesion. Mental and emotional well-being is equally integrated into daily life. Social bonds, storytelling, ritual observance, and artistic engagement provide outlets for expression, reflection, and resilience. Children, through play, learning, and observation, develop coping strategies and social intelligence. Elders offer guidance, support, and wisdom, embedding emotional literacy within communal structures. You sense that health in Angkor Wat encompasses body, mind, and spirit, with each dimension reinforced through intertwined daily practices. Accidents, though less frequent, are inevitable in a city of this scale. Falls from scaffolding, water-related incidents, and labor mishaps are addressed with immediacy and care. Families and neighbors assist in treatment, applying remedies, offering transport, or providing temporary labor relief. These events reinforce solidarity and social responsibility, emphasizing the interconnectedness of survival, skill, and community engagement. Spiritual practices are inseparable from health. Rituals aimed at appeasing spirits or seeking divine protection accompany treatment for serious illness. You observe small shrines in homes or at temple precincts where offerings are made. Incantations recited and blessings sought. Healing is approached as a holistic enterprise, encompassing the seen and unseen, the empirical and symbolic. Patients and caregivers navigate these layers with attentiveness and respect, ensuring that both practical and spiritual dimensions are addressed. Children's health and education intersect. Observation, imitation, and instruction teach young people about hygiene, injury prevention, nutrition, and ritual care. Games and physical activity, though playful, also build strength, coordination, and resilience. Apprenticeship in craft or labor includes awareness of safe techniques, fatigue management, and environmental hazards. The integration of health knowledge into daily life ensures that practical and preventative measures are transmitted naturally alongside technical skill and moral guidance. Social responses to health crises extend beyond individual households. Epidemics or localized outbreaks provoke communal measures, coordination of labor, temporary relocation, ritual purification, and shared vigilance. Local authorities, informed by observation and tradition, guide these responses, balancing social order, religious propriety, and practical necessity. Cities' infrastructure canals, markets, granary supports, both prevention and mitigation, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of interconnected risks and resources. Even leisure and cultural practices accommodate health considerations. Dance, music, and storytelling provide controlled physical activity, mental engagement, and social integration. Artisans, musicians, and performers pace their work to avoid overexertion, integrating rest and ritual reflection into daily schedules. Festivals, while celebratory, are structured to balance participation. Labor and spiritual observance, reinforcing both enjoyment and well-being. As dusk settles, households and public spaces observe evening rituals, incorporating attention to health and spiritual protection. Lamps illuminate pathways, incense purifies spaces, and chants invoke safety, balance, and harmony. Families gather to reflect on the day, share meals, and prepare for rest. Integrating physical care with social and spiritual continuity, the rhythm of life structured, attentive, and interconnected persists even as darkness deepens. Nightfall offers a moment of quiet reflection on the city's resilience. Families and practitioners continue subtle observances, tending fires, monitoring water and food, checking for illness or injury, and offering prayers. Children sleep under watchful eyes, absorbing knowledge, values, and security. The city's systems, domestic, social, spiritual, and infrastructural work in concert to preserve life, memory, and continuity, even against the ever-present uncertainties of health and environment. Angkor Wat whispers again in these night hours, revealing the often invisible threads that sustain life: care, knowledge, vigilance, and compassion, interwoven with ritual, labor, and artistry. You perceive that the true endurance of the city lies not solely in its monumental stonework, but in the delicate, persistent practices that maintain the bodies, spirits, and hearts of its inhabitants. As the 10th day dawns over Angkor Wat, your attention turns to the quiet, enduring presence of memory, time, and human endeavor. The city, now revealed in its full complexity, is more than stone, water, and cultivated land. It is a repository of countless individual lives, choices, and labors, each layer subtly inscribed upon the next. The monumental temples, terraces, and canals stand as enduring witnesses. Yet the true essence of Angkor Wat resides in the invisible networks of care, labor, devotion, and creativity that have sustained it across generations. You perceive the cumulative effect of centuries of human activity. Artisans refining their craft, farmers adjusting to seasonal cycles, families nurturing children, monks preserving knowledge, and communities negotiating social cohesion. Each act, no matter how mundane, has contributed to the resilience, vibrancy, and continuity of the city. The traces of their presence are found not only in material artifacts, but also in ritual practices, oral traditions, and the rhythms of daily life that persist subtly, even in the absence of direct observation. Stone bas-reliefs, once animated with movement and sound, now stand in serene silence. Yet they carry encoded narratives of labor, devotion, and social life. You imagine the hands that carved each line, the eyes that conceived each figure, and the minds that envisioned cosmic order. These artisans, often anonymous, leave behind a visual language that bridges time, allowing future generations to perceive their skill, intention, and worldview. Their contribution is both practical and symbolic, merging aesthetic excellence with the perpetuation of cultural memory. Water continues to flow through canals and reservoirs, sustaining life and echoing human coordination. You sense the rhythm of labor and maintenance, the seasonal adjustments, and the subtle oversight by those who understood the delicate balance between human effort and environmental conditions. These hydraulic systems, both functional and emblematic, exemplify the integration of technical knowledge, communal responsibility, and spiritual consciousness. Water is not only a material necessity, but also a medium through which the interconnectedness of life is experienced and enacted. The city's rituals, festivals, and daily observances endure as threads, connecting past, present, and future. Offerings, prayers, and processions create continuity between generations. Linking the living with ancestors and the divine, you imagine monks reciting sacred texts, children observing, and families participating, all forming a subtle lattice of shared memory and moral guidance. These practices, though sometimes imperceptible to outsiders, preserve collective identity and reinforce the ethical, spiritual, and social frameworks of Angkor Wat. Domestic life, though less monumental, remains a foundation of continuity. Families engage in routines of care, education, and labor, ensuring the transmission of knowledge, skill, and values. Children, apprentices, and younger members absorb lessons both explicit and tacit, preparing to inherit responsibilities and sustain the community's rhythms. Everyday gestures, preparing meals, weaving cloth, tending gardens, are acts of preservation, embodying continuity in both practical and symbolic forms. Each household is a microcosm of the city's broader, temporal, social, and spiritual currents. Artistic life persists, bridging temporal and spatial boundaries. Music, dance, and storytelling continue to echo cultural memory, embedding lessons, pleasure, and communal identity in the fabric of daily life. Artisans work in workshops or homes, perpetuating skills and adapting to changing circumstances, ensuring that creativity remains alive and socially integrated. Even in moments of quiet reflection, the city hums with the potential for aesthetic expression. A reminder that culture is sustained not solely by monuments, but by continuous human engagement and imagination. Health and survival remain interwoven with social and spiritual practices. Households, healers, and communal systems work in concert to mitigate illness, manage injury, and sustain well-being. Ritual observance, empirical knowledge, and cooperative effort form a cohesive framework that ensures continuity despite environmental or social challenges. You sense that care, vigilance, and knowledge transmission are as essential to the city's endurance as stone and water, subtle yet vital forces that shape the trajectory of generations. As you walk through Angkor Wat in the quiet of early evening, you notice the layering of temporal rhythms. Light and shadow reveal subtle architectural details, rustling leaves echo faintly across causeways, and the gentle flow of water mirrors centuries of coordinated human effort. The city's pulse is continuous, yet composed of innumerable discrete actions: planting and harvesting, carving and weaving, praying and teaching. Each contribution, however ephemeral, resonates across time, linking the living with the memory of those who have gone before. Night deepens, and the city settles into a reflective calm. Fires flicker in households, lamps glow in shrines, and nocturnal creatures stir amid shadowed galleries. The monumental temples, now silent and still, seem to exhale centuries of whispered stories of artisans, farmers, traders, monks. Parents and children whose lives, though often invisible in official chronicles, collectively shaped the enduring fabric of Angkor Wat. The city's grandeur is thus inseparable from the quiet, persistent efforts of countless individuals whose names may never be recorded, but whose presence is indelibly inscribed in every stone, canal, and ritual gesture. And as the final night of this exploration envelops Angkor Wat, you recognize that the city's true story lies in its ongoing interplay of memory, labor, devotion, and creativity. Every human gesture, whether monumental or minute, public or private, contributes to the subtle, unbroken continuity of life. The whispers of the city's forgotten inhabitants persist, guiding the observer to understand that history is not only written in stone but lived, breathed, and quietly sustained by those who came before. Angkor Wat, in all its grandeur and subtlety, endures not only as a physical monument, but as a living archive of human endeavor, creativity, and resilience. The city whispers its lessons across time, reminding you that the essence of civilization is found in the delicate balance of labor. Ritual, artistry, care, and memory, each layer seamlessly interwoven with the next, creating a tapestry that transcends individual lives and persists through the ages.